great pleasure for me today to be able to address you here. I have always believed that young people who are able to gain an education and a meaningful employment contribute to a more peaceful life. Likewise, young people who have the opportunity to interact with people from other cultures become more open-minded and help build and support international understanding. I must confess that I wish I could have enjoyed the possibility of the AFS programs. I had to get my international experience in a slightly different way. After my graduation and teaching 1 year in Oulu, in the northern Finland, I decided to go and work in Pakistan for 3 years. I was helped by the Swedish non-governmental organization, which has a marvelous name, Central Committee for Swedish Technical Assistance. It sounds very 60s, Central Committee. When I returned, I worked for a while with Finnish student aid, and in that capacity, I had my first contacts with Namibia. I received a young man from Namibia, poorly educated. He joined the University of Helsinki, did in 5 years his MA in political science, and when he was told by SWAPO that he had to become a medical doctor, he studied and became medical doctor. He has been a minister since Namibia became independent in 1990. His name is Niki Jamba. Some of you might even know him. I joined 1965 the Finnish Foreign Office in the development assistance field. It was an easy decision to go into the development field, which later took me abroad to Tanzania and later on to Namibia as both ambassador and special representative of the Secretary General. After overseeing Namibia's transition to independence in 1989-90, I was made honorary, actually 2 years later, honorary Namibian citizen together with my wife. Ladies and gentlemen, I always say that if the Finns don't treat me well, I know where I will go. So far, I only visit Namibia. After my experiences in Africa, I and my family moved to New York, where I worked from 1977 to 1991. It's fair to say that some of my closest friends are from the time when I lived abroad. The purpose of this brief introduction was not to be discussing myself at length, but I wanted to point out that intercultural understanding indeed comes from intercultural interaction. But that is something you all know, and that's why we are all gathered here today. I'm sure that we all agree that the lack of education, unemployment, and poverty are ingredients for conflict. If so, it is not surprising that to any of us that the Arab Spring occurred in Middle East and North Africa region, where youth in many countries account to over 70% of the total population, and where youth unemployment in some countries is over 40%. This is also the part of the world where young women are allowed the least role to play. The Arab Spring also taught us that democracy is not a Western value only, but a universal one. Young people, uneducated, unemployed, and with no hope for the future simply had enough of being told what to do or what not to do by oppressive regimes. Their demands for change have been heard in all parts of the world. These young people long for a change. They want an education, they want employment, they want a role to play in shaping of their own societies. The governments concerned have a great responsibility to play. They should use growth-oriented economic policy to create new jobs, tax policies and administrative practices that encourage small and medium-sized businesses are crucial. The work done by several organizations is very important in educating and helping young people find employment, self-employment, and access to finance. Some of the organizations that I have worked closely which are International Youth Foundation in Baltimore, Silatech in Qatar, Doha, and Imaginations Group in Washington. These organizations do not target education or employment separately, but tie together both dimensions, making sure that the training received is relevant for the employment opportunities. I also want to mention the work done by many organizations in educating particularly young girls, and by the Elders Group, which was established by President Mandela, in increasing equality for women and girls and trying to end the tradition of child marriages. My own organization, Crisis Management Initiative, has recently started a very interesting project in South Sudan. The purpose with the project is to deepen the participation and ownership of young people in shaping the future of their own country. The project facilitates youth leaders to bring the outcomes from international dialogues to politicians at both local and national levels. These politicians will then link the views of the young people to political process, such as the drafting of a national constitution. If we move from conflict that take place within the state to conflict between cultural groups, it is important to remember that it is human to fear the unknown. It is difficult to understand other cultures when people are divided into culturally and academically homogeneous groups. What we want to encourage is bridge building between cultures, and here I applaud AFS for its important work. Everyone has a responsibility to further intercultural education. The international society and state, by agreeing to human rights treaties, allowing the movement of people, and by liberalizing visa regulations, the local communities and schools by offering opportunities for interaction and education among young people in different parts of the world. And the family by fostering open minds and spirits in their own young family members. It has been proven that democracy is best learned in a democratic setting where participation is encouraged, where views can be expressed openly and discussed, where there is a freedom of expression for pupils and teachers, and where there is fairness and justice. By linking this information to the work you are doing here at AFS, one could say that opening up the opportunity for even more students from Middle East and North Africa regions to spend time in democratic societies could not only be a life-changing experience for the students personally, but would allow them to become change makers in their own societies. Here I want to mention a very interesting initiative which bears my name, Ahtisaari Leadership Fund, that will fund PhD students from the emerging democracies in Egypt, Libya, and Tunisia, and in turn in the future from other Arab states as well, to study at some of the most prestigious English and French-speaking European universities. To begin with, at the UCL in London, at the École Normale Supérieure in Paris. It can perhaps be called an elite initiative, but it is important to target all levels of society, and for sustained progress, intellectual leadership by those educated at the highest level is important. North Africa currently lacks a sufficiently large cohort of such individuals, particularly among young women. Modern information technology has in many ways been a very positive factor in bridging cultures. You might be familiar with the many social media tools that exist, which establishes and maintains virtual global links between friends and acquaintances all over the world. I'm sure that you are much more acquainted with those that people of my age group are. There are also many employment-related global websites that, for example, link entrepreneurs with members who help in achieving goals and in offering targeted advice for young people who are starting or have started their own businesses. The idea behind most of these social media sites comes from young people. It is thus imperative to listen to them invest in their initiatives, and allow them a seat at the decision-making table. Your Royal Highness, ladies and gentlemen, I try to live as I preach in my own organization, Crisis Management Initiative. A large majority of all employees are under 35 years old, and more than half of them are women. I look forward to discussing these issues further with you during the panel discussion, and I hope to be challenged by many, particularly the young people whom I saw in the audience. Thank you very much.